Are you wondering how to get through the first 30 days of sobriety without being miserable and without giving up? In this episode, our guests are going to share all their tips and tricks for how to do the first 30 days successfully and even happily. Everyone has a different way of arriving on their path of sobriety, but many of the challenges are very similar. We're here to take off some pressure and help you figure out what to do next.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and that recovery isn't just rewarding, but it's also a lot of fun. We're your hosts, Steve and Julie. Listen as we get together with friends to shed light on the hard things, talk about the other side of addiction, and how we create a life so full, there's no space left for alcohol.
One of the most important parts of early recovery is finding the right support, and we can give you exactly that. Every Monday night, we host a sober happy hour on Zoom, a place where you can hang out with other people doing exactly what you're doing and feeling a lot of those same feelings. Come hang out, swap ideas and stories, get the support you need, and help out some other people when you share your own experiences. You can get all the details at throughtheglassrecovery.com. All right, welcome everybody. Hi, and thank you so much for being here. I am actually really excited to be recording tonight. It is my third sober anniversary, so super cool way to celebrate it, hanging out with some awesome sober people. And just really looking forward to the conversation. So I'm going to have you guys do introductions.
Before you go any farther.
Uh-oh.
Congratulations.
Oh, okay. I was like,
That's so hard. You can't just say it's my third sober anniversary and carry on like it's not important.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Julie.
Appreciate it. Okay, so with that out of the way and stuff, we're going to do introductions. So I'm going to go ahead and have Amy start us off. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Amy. I am 8 months and 4 days sober today. I live in Texas. I've got one kiddo who is an adult. He's 20. And I work in research. So alcohol's really kind of been a part of my life since I was born. I'm a child of an alcoholic. So I come up with that background and then I came by it honestly.
So what you're saying is you've done lots of research over your lifetime.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely a challenge and one we hear fairly often. The whole parents being a drinker thing is pretty common. So yeah, really glad you're here. Really glad you're here to share your perspective. And we actually got to hang out with Amy at our Monday night meeting this past week. So it was really good to get to know you there and can't wait to chat with you some more.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we're going to go with Dana.
I am Dana, and I am just over 4 years sober. August 31st is my 4-year sober anniversary. So I get to celebrate closely with everybody here.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have a podcast, so it's always fun to meet other people. So it's really great. And it was trauma that brought me to drinking, a personal and a professional incident that happened kind of at the same time. I was a drinker until I turned 40, and then I went pro really quickly and then found my sobriety about 10 years after that. So it was a wild ride, the one that I really don't need to be on ever again.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. I'm heavily involved with the Recovery Friendly Workplace Initiative and just everything recovery in my work. I at my day job is a director of global sales operations, but then I also run 2 programs that work too for recovery.
Nice.
Awesome. Really cool. Yeah. Well, make sure you send me a link to your podcast also, and we'll get that shared to all of our listeners. I think there's never enough podcasts about this stuff in the world. So Steve, what did you have?
Share with us what the name of your podcast is and what it's about?
Yeah, it's 4 Sober Chicks. And we used to be 4 women. Now we're 3. So our number 4 has changed to FOR.
I saw that, and I think that's the most creative fix ever. It was brilliant.
but we'll still, all of our branding is still with the number 4. And we're in our 3rd season, and we are Women for Sobriety, and we support women and anybody who supports women, and love to interview people to tell their stories and get the word out there.
Awesome. Yeah, really love that. And I love that you brought up the workplace initiative too. Steve and I actually just learned about that. We went to a recovery conference back in August, I think it was, and learned a little bit about that, signed the petition and some other stuff. So yeah, really, really cool stuff to be involved in, and really nice to meet you.
It's a great segue into introducing Micah, who was also at said conference.
Yes, so we got to meet Micah. We met Micah here locally in Green Junction, where we live, and she's part of the recovery group and community there. So do you want to introduce yourself too?
Thanks, guys. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Micah, 38, from Grand Junction, Colorado, born and raised. I am 16 months sober, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
I just signed my internship yesterday to be a peer recovery coach intern. So that's a big deal, My natural career is a chef. And so my alcoholism, well, it led me to the hospital. That led me to neuropathy, where I can't use my hands and I can't use my knives anymore. So, I had to take a different path, and recovery coach, peer support, here we are. So
I think you're perfect for that. That's awesome. Really cool. Really happy to have you here, and glad to get to hang out with you a little bit. So, so for our topic, the first 30 days are often the hardest to get through. When you quit drinking alcohol, it feels like everything changes in an instant, and often it feels like almost every single situation is a challenge. So what helped you the most in the first 30 days of recovery? What were some of the biggest challenges, and how did you get through them? Anybody's welcome to start, and then we'll just jump into a conversation.
I'll start.
Great.
The first 30 days, I was, half of it, I was in the hospital. The first week, I was in the hospital. So the doctor said if I were to drink again, I was going to die. So I went home with that mindset, and that was it. So I had to admit to myself that alcohol was killing me, that I was powerless, So that helped me, because I had to get to that first step, that's admitting it. And then that last 30 days, I went back to the hospital, a different one, and was asked, "Do you want to live, Micah?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." Yeah. So that gave me a different mindset. Yeah, I decided I want to live. I deserve a better life. Let's go. So there is self-determination that helped me, self-awareness of how bad it was. That helped, my support system, my family, they helped me, because my independence was taken from me. I couldn't use my hands. I was on a walker. I was on oxygen, So those challenges were your basic daily skills, your self skills, I couldn't do them. So that was taking ownership of that problem. And that really picked me up, literally. So setting small goals was what helped me. That goal would be going to the couch, going to take a shower, like those small goals. And then, yeah.
You said something really, really powerful there that I think I'd never thought about it this way before, but you talked about the switch between I don't want to die and then getting to the point where you said, I want to live. And that is an incredible transition and transformation just from the first place to the second. I think that's really inspiring. And I think it puts to words what a lot of us have probably experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I heard the word support. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Go for it. I heard the word support, and there's so many people out there that don't have it, and it's so important to have it. I think that's one of the biggest things to get you through that first 30 days is support. And not only just supporting yourself for self-awareness and self-care and self-love, because you find a lot of that you don't have that and you have to work to get it. My husband was, I quit 5 days before holiday, this Labor Day, the next weekend. And I was like, can I just have one? And he was like, if you have one, you will not remember the rest of the weekend. He's like, you've got to think about that. So he was that support for me that really stuck out to me is having that support. And I didn't have it otherwise. Like I had it from a few friends here and there, but most of the people just didn't understand. They're like, what do you mean you're going to quit drinking? Like, that's stupid. Why would you do that? And you had to, like Micah said, you got to retrain your thought process and your thought pattern.
And your friends.
And your friends. I had to step away from some. Some stepped away from me because they didn't know how to interact with me. And that was very hard. And that's where you start diving in deep to yourself and trying to really figure some of that stuff out. Micah, you said something too in your intro about the recovery specialist and the peer support. By September 30th, for me, I was enrolled in a recovery coach certification program because I wasn't that AA person and I needed something, and I was like, I'm a learner. So I jumped into that, and that really helped me with my first 30 days. But it's a toughie. It's a toughie.
The first time I went to rehab back in 2020, I came out. I didn't have a peer support help. I went to the Oxford House, and then my mother became ill and she passed away. So that made me relapse again. 2 years of relapse. But that last time when I came out, the second time out of the hospital, the doctor introduced me to a peer coach online so I could sit with my oxygen tank on and talk to another person that understood me. And then, right then, I was like, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to be a peer coach. I'm going to be a peer therapist. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And that's what I did. And so here we are.
That's awesome. The support thing is huge for me. That's what made the difference between all of my other attempts to quit drinking and this one that's finally been successful. I had so much shame. I didn't want to have to talk to anybody about the fact that I had a drinking problem. Like, I didn't care if it was AA or any other human. I was not going to admit that to a single person. So, like, I tried listening to podcasts and that helped some. And I tried reading a couple of books. I tried, I found a Reddit sub online where people were talking about it, but it was just not the same. And when I finally quit this last time, I mean, I was literally 2 hours sober. I was 2 hours from my last drink, and I found an online group. And it wasn't AA, but it was like an online Zoom support thing. And that's when everything changed, because there's all these people talking about their struggles, but also their successes, and willing to hear what I had to say. And I could, talk about things like, having alcohol hidden in all the different closets and drawers, or, trying to go from liquor store to liquor store so that the people that worked there wouldn't recognize me. All those things that when you hear it, you nod, right? But at the time, I thought I was the only person who ever did those things. I was sure I was the only mom that was like sneaking a glass of wine at 10 a.m. just to try to get through lunchtime with my kids. And it turned out as soon as I started hearing people talk, I was like, I'm not the only one dealing with this. I thought either I was too far gone, that, I wasn't going to be able to be helped because I was so much worse than everybody else, or something. But just to have it, to show up and realize I was kind of normal as far as heavy drinkers goes, really made a difference. And it gave me, it took the shame away enough that I could let people in. And that's when the real shift happened, was letting people in and letting people really show up for me the way I needed them to.
I got a question for everyone. Before Amy, I'll let you go after this, but I got a question for everyone, because you talked about going to the different liquor stores because you didn't want to be remembered. Like you either went there that day or you went there the day before or whatever. It was close enough that I'll just go to the other one so they don't see me grab another bottle or another case or whatever it is. How many times did you go to the liquor store and then you saw someone you knew and you were like, oh crap? Or
I live in a town of 300 people.
Wow.
All the time.
I didn't. And there was times where I would pull into a parking lot and I would see a vehicle that I knew, or I got in there and there was a person that I knew, and I'd see the back of their head, and I'd be like, I'm not really supposed to be here, or I feel guilty enough being here to begin with that I would duck and hide. Is that just me, or is there anybody else that has experienced something like that?
I oddly, this is awful. I was proud of my drinking. It was weird, and I didn't become ashamed until after I quit and realized, oh my God, who was that person and what the hell was going on? I do remember during the pandemic, the beer store didn't have my beer, and I went off on them because they're like, we're not getting it for 2 weeks. I'm like, the brewery is like a half hour away. And I ended up going down to the brewery and picking up like 4 cases, because then I was embarrassed to go back to the beer distributor because I had yelled at the guy, and I was like, oh. But not embarrassed because of my alcohol issue, embarrassed because I went off on him. But yeah.
Alcohol induced embarrassment still.
Yeah.
True.
I have hidden shooters everywhere, and that was my embarrassment, is when they would find the empty ones and dangle them in my face. That was all the embarrassment that I needed. So,
Yeah.
For that.
Amy. Oh,
I was a little bit of an oddball, and I think it kind of came up from growing up with alcohol around me the way I was. I was not secretive about my drinking. I was not secretive about how much I drank. The people at the gas station or the liquor store were my friends. I got Christmas ornaments, Rumpleman's Christmas ornaments, gloves, and other things. The liquor store didn't really start for me until COVID. I was always a drinker that drank at the bar, and I have a good work ethic, and I had a good drinking ethic. I spent 3 hours a day from 3 to 6 every day for many years. My first 30 days was a little rough emotionally already. I had already been seeking out trauma therapy and stuff like that, and starting to cut back with naltrexone. So pretty much the day that my husband sat down next to me and said, hey, I think I want a divorce, that's the last day I picked up. But I knew that I was already on that path. I'd already considered going to treatment about a month and a half before, but was asked not to because we wouldn't be able to talk daily. Go figure, right? So the real challenge for me in the beginning was to make sure what my motive was. And I found out pretty quickly that my motive was for me. It was not to save a marriage. I pragmatically sat down and said, if that's what is best for you and healthier for you, then you need to do that. I was a blackout drinker for 5 years. A lot of the damage I've caused, I don't even know. You know, I know that people are walking around right now with memories of me that I don't remember. And I think that sucks. Sometimes I kind of had a moment yesterday about it, but my first 30 days, it was sheer determination. My only goal was, I'm not going to the bar at 3:00. I am going to stay busy. My goal every day was have my head hit that pillow sober, no matter what was going on in my life. The house was tense. Things were weird. You know, my kids walking around going, what the heck is going on here? You know, but too scared to say anything. I was one of those that tried to quit a lot of times, but I didn't do it openly. I would just maybe I didn't go to the bar for 3 days, and then I would have, you know, the conversation of, well, it's been like 3 days. Don't you want to go to the bar? Well, of course I want to go to the bar, right? So I filled my time. Like you said, Micah, the self-aware. I knew, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, this whole thing with my marriage. I mean, I saw it coming. There's no way that it doesn't get there when I was drinking the way I was. I wasn't present for anything, not myself, not anyone else. So I literally was sitting there going, okay, my competition was with myself every day and in my mind. So I felt like purity crap, at least for the first 2 weeks. My sleep was jacked. I would get up and just take showers at 3 o'clock in the morning. Candy was my friend. I got stuck on Nutty Buddies and Little Debbie snacks. And it was serious. Like the way I went to the bar, I went to the dollar store up the street because I live in a small town. And they're like, again? I'm like, every damn day. And I'm like, at least that's not Rumple Mints, right? I will deal with the fallout of this later. You know, and I had to have conversations. My support really came kind of from within. I'm going to be quite honest. I had to, you know, tell my husband that, listen, I understand. I just want to be clear with you that I don't expect you to be my cheerleader. I know you've probably thought this needed to happen a long time ago, but unfortunately, this is when it happened for me. But my biggest support, I'm not going to lie, it was my bartender. And she's one of my best friends. And everybody laughs at that, like, oh, we all think they're our best friends. No, she really is. And I maintained non-alcoholic life with her outside of this. And she was the one who would only serve me a certain amount. So, man, I kept busy. I went to the gym. I bought a lot of crap off Amazon. And I just exhausted myself every day. I didn't find a program that worked for me until my day 59. So I spent 59 days like that, just not knowing, other than I know I can't have that as an option. So drilling that into my head, that it's not an option. I had already isolated myself from a lot of people. So, you know, I didn't have to really change people, but I had to change the way I drove home from work to not pass my bar, because that was also my second home. And the people in it, I'm going to a funeral tomorrow for someone that died that was an old regular there, you know? I mean, these people I made relationships with, and sheer determination, stubbornness, and having to accept I don't know what any of my life was going to look like. So it took me forever to quit drinking because I was scared of what I looked like on the other side of that bottle. I'd lived in it for so long, I didn't know who I was.
There's
So that's kind of
much unknown.
Yes. And I knew that if I was going to survive that, working that trauma, not putting that drink in my hand, not going to the liquor store, my biggest struggle was emotions. I wasn't used to having them anymore. And because I shoved everything down. So, I mean, there was times I'd have to go drive it around and I would just cry, you know, to be by myself, because I'm like, I don't even know. I wasn't comfortable anywhere, y'all. Everything was messed up. Nothing was comfortable. Nothing felt peaceful.
Didn't your skin just crawl?
Oh, absolutely. I got the itches. I mean, if you saw pictures of me when I was drinking, and now it's so strange. I saw a picture of myself the other day and it just about broke my own heart for myself. I was dying.
Yeah.
And I was killing myself, and I was hurting everyone around me, to include myself. And I had just, for me, there was like a switch flipped. I just went, this is it. And I've always had an inner knowing that was going to come, but I was like, this is it. And I know the moment where I sat on the edge of a bed talking about divorce and me going, it doesn't have to be ugly if that's what we need to do, blah, 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 blah. And here's my support system. Well, if you would just drink at home. And I looked at him and I said, it is not where I drink. It is that I drink. I said, I will never be able to touch alcohol again. And when I said that out loud, it was like spell work. It was like, you said it out loud, and I don't like to be a flaky person. So I'm like, nope, I can't go back on that for myself. And that's how I've landed myself 8 months in. And thankfully, don't think of alcohol when things go wrong anymore. You know, I'm like, oh, I've got another coping skill for that. So
Right.
learning.
There's something that I say every so often, and it's there's a big difference between I need to quit drinking and I'm ready to quit drinking. And there are so many people who are still stuck in, I know I need to. It's not doing me any good. It's hurting me. It's making me miserable. It's destroying my relationships, and they know they need to quit. But until you talk about the switch that flips, until you get to the point where you're like, I am ready to quit drinking, it seems like you're still just in this constant battle. I know for me, it was after that meeting that I went to was like, okay, I can do anything for 30 days. Staying sober for 30 days is not going to kill me. I had done it before and I knew I could do it. And so I just made the commitment to 30 days because anything more than that felt impossible, but anything less than that, and I felt like I was cheating too much. So 30 seemed like a good number. But so I told myself, like, you can, after 30 days is over, that next morning, you decide then and there if you feel better and it's worth it, and you're going to do another 30 days, or if you really want to go back to drinking. And by the end of 30 days, it was like, all right, I feel so much better. I'm going to do another 30. So I got to 60, and then that was it. There was no looking back. I'd never wanted to feel that way again. But those first 30 days, like and throughout the months and years after, there have been times where I'm like, all I want is to never have to go through those first 30 days again, because it was hard. Like, the only way out is through. You got to go through the 30 days to get to the other side. But those first 30 days for me were absolutely brutal. And I never want to go through that again.
Oh, I don't either. And to look back, it was like drowning in the ocean and the waves come. And it's like I jumped up for air and I got to the shore as fast as I could. And it's like I can never do that again, because I don't know if I'll come back out of that.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't want to do that again.
Dana, did you have something? You look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, it's all good. It's funny that you say that with the first 30 days, because the same year that I quit we did dry January. There was a bunch of us that did dry January, and I could not wait until February 1st. Like, it was all I could think about. It was such a different mindset than when I actually just stopped and quit drinking. And I did have those many starts and many stops along the years, but that January in 2020, it was like I don't even know how to explain it. It was just an awful feeling that, like, every day I'm like, it was just a drag, and I'm like, I gotta get to February 1st. I gotta get to February 1st, and like February 2nd was a Super Bowl. I don't really remember it. Amy, like you, I was a blackout drinker. So, there's many memories that I only have because I have photographs of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's really a mindset too, eh? Like, that's what you're talking about there, is your mindset in that, in your 30-day experiment was, when is this over? I'm doing this for torture? What? Right?
Torture.
The worst part about my 30 days was the withdrawals. That's one of the things that absolutely scares me the most. I changed my bed sheets. Actually, I didn't change the bed sheets. I wish I had changed the bed sheets, because there was a small lake in my bed for a week. And I would wake up, change my shirt, go to the dry spot because I was too embarrassed to say anything else, and then wake up in another wet spot.
Yeah.
And that's just the puddle I woke up in, not and I don't know that you can really explain it. My body just hurt.
Yes. Same. Mine did too. And I actually, when I had blood work done, that took a lot of guts to do, because I already knew my liver values weren't good. I was bruising, and I have a medical background. So I'm like and I'm still doing it to myself. That's the insanity right there. That, my God, the waking up, the not feeling well, but my body hurt so bad that they sent me to a rheumatologist. You know what it was? Vitamin D deficiency, because my alcoholism was so bad. I was replacing food with alcohol at that point, and I had no vitamin D, and it presents like, I was like, I did. I was
everything
like,
manifests.
I didn't know I hurt.
Yeah, right. It manifests in its own, and I think it manifests in everybody in our own special way. I mean, I had bruises on my right on, like where my liver was. I woke up with like this bruise, and I'm like, what the hell happened to me? And then I would Google it, and then I would ignore the results of my Google search, and seriously, and like carry on. The bruise went away, and I got to carry on the same way, because It's never going to happen to me. I told myself that story all the time. But the first 30 days was outside of that, and you talked about getting support. I had no idea in my first 30 days what was even out there for it, because I had never actually considered drink. I never like typed it in and said, how to quit drinking, and never looked up what came up, or I never explored any of, what was out there already for sobriety. I had never, ever thought about actually quitting, taking a break for a couple of days, but never actually thought about quitting until the day I actually quit. And it was never a low. It wasn't my rock bottom. I had way worse rock bottoms than when my now ex, found my credit card bill. I had to admit that I had a problem right there. And so my version of support was, I think at that time I was so desperate I was willing to accept the consequences of me just coming out and saying, I was like, okay, I need to tell work. So I told my work, I called HR. I need to make a doctor's appointment. And the first thing that I Googled when you have an alcohol problem is Alcohol Anonymous shows up. And so I found an online meeting because I got sober in the middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I tried what was there. And as I grew, when I passed my 30 days, as I grew, I discovered other things that I began to connect to, and that started working for me, that actually hit my heart. So I followed it that way. But in the first 30 days, I made a plan. I told my family, I told her family, and I said, okay, I need support. I don't know what that looks like. And that was it. I had no clue. So I made a plan to go to 4 meetings a week that worked with the schedule. And I sat down with my wife at the time and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And this is when I'm going to sit down with these people. And that's what I did. And I spoke to someone on the phone. Anytime I was terrified, because I was so terrified to drive home from work, my very first day back at work, which was day 2, because I went to work other than the first day. That whole week was absolutely horrendous. I did nothing at work. My brain fog was nasty. I like processing stuff. I remember on day 6, I was like, how many days am I sober? I'm counting on my fingers, and the math didn't add up. So I had to download an app on my phone so I could put the original date in so it could spit out 6 days. I remember this sitting on the couch, but I asked for help. Yeah. And even if I didn't like the answers that I heard, I still stayed, because I was too terrified of what the results would be if I went back drinking.
Another thing you said there that's really important, I think, is, for that first week, you basically got nothing accomplished. I this time round, I had quit once for like 14 months back in 2019. And so I kind of knew how that first month was going to go. This time around, one of the things that I kind of just gave myself was a whole lot of grace. Like, my only job every day was to just not drink. If that's all that I accomplished, if I laid on the couch and cried, because like that actually happened. And as long as my children were still alive, even if they were just eating like gummy bears and graham crackers, that part didn't matter, as long as I was sober by the end of the day. And I think that, when you first quit drinking, you're like, I'm not getting anything done. And you think it's going to be like that forever. But it's not. There's going to be a week or 2 or 4 where you get nothing done and you feel like all you can do every day is just stay sober. That's okay, because it won't be like that forever. And I wish that I had understood that, because, it felt like it was going to go on for so long that I would never get anything done.
I definitely made not drinking that month, and it wasn't even intentional. Just if I was to chop that month out and talk about it, I made not drinking my very only priority. Mm-hmm. That was it. If it was the one thing that I got out of going to a meeting and listening to them talk, like, make that your number one thing.
Yeah.
And so how do I protect this? And then I didn't know the answers. I didn't know how to protect it. There's no instruction manual for how to protect it. It does.
No, but that's something you can tell you, like, you can ask yourself that every day or every moment or every hour. What do I need to do to protect my sobriety right now?
Absolutely.
In those early days, that might be an every hour question that you're asking yourself. But in that moment, you're going to know the answer. If you stop and you listen to yourself long enough, you'll know what you need to do just for that hour or just for that minute to protect your sobriety. I think that's a really beautiful way to put that.
I remember sitting at my desk at work, and man, some people pissed me off and I really wanted a goddamn drink. And there I was, just sitting there, and I waited it out. I just waited. And I wasn't going to get up and go anywhere. I just sit here. I can't hurt myself. That's what I come down to. I can't hurt myself if I just sit here. So I just sat there. And as much as my blood was boiling and my brain was getting itchy, I don't know how else to explain that, but it feels like a bigger fight than what it actually is. And the longer I fought it, the harder it got. The more I accepted that this is just where I'm at, the easier it got.
And it's so
I think it. Go ahead, Dana. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it's so hard to be present when you're feeling that. You just want to get past it so fast and so quickly. And it's like, I think that was one of my bigger takeaways in my sobriety is learning how to be present, because it's the only way to get through. And it's the only way to just calm yourself, to just say, okay, it's okay. I'm here, doing okay. I'm still alive, and I will get through this moment in time right now. And then distract yourself with whatever is going on around you, get you through. That's huge.
Can we also talk about how, like, and I this is news for a lot of people when they quit drinking, you don't actually have to drink emotions away. They will just pass on their own. Like, I didn't understand that. So I'm like, I cannot stand to feel this way. I have to do something about it. I have to drink to make it go away. It turns out you can just sit there and feel that emotion and it's going to pass. And it sounds so silly that when you've spent your decades drinking away every emotion you didn't want to feel, it's shocking to realize, oh, I didn't have to drink it away. I'm really okay and I don't feel that way anymore. It's an important lesson. It sounds so silly and simple, but for some of us, that was news.
I think it's huge. And I was, was talking about that, getting upset, I drank it, everything. I bought new shoes, I drank. I was upset, I drank. I was happy, I drank. It was like my only coping skill. And I drank because I didn't want to feel feelings. But you know what I've learned? You're exactly right. It's different in an hour or two. It's temporary. And if we actually process them, then they don't come back up in 30 minutes or an hour and try to sneak back in. We actually look at it and face it. And I think that, just thinking about my first 30 days, and if I had anybody out there that was trying, what you said about grace, Julie, I think that it's so hard for us to give ourselves, because I think a lot of us are coming out with a lot of shame in that first 30 days, that first few months of sobriety. And if I'd have had someone to say, hey, honey, please give yourself some grace, I think that would have been a little bit easier. And if somebody would have said, it's okay to be selfish about this right now, because, you're coming out of that, and it's alcohol makes us so selfish, even if we don't even believe that we're not selfish people. We're selfish with other things like time and what we give to others. And it was a struggle on me to be selfish because I was so codependent that I did for everybody else. But I struggled. And I think if somebody would have been like, this is okay to be selfish, that would have helped me too. And that is a time that you do have to be selfish and put your sobriety first, like you said, Steve. Most definitely, it's got to be the focus.
There's the difference between being a people pleaser and saying, I'm doing all of this for everyone else. And if you're a people pleaser and you're doing that for everyone else, and that is what's keeping you comfortable, then you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. Micah, you got anything else?
I was going to resonate with what Amy was saying. Sorry, I drew a blank. But just those first 30 days, those were the hardest. And when I read the question, I couldn't even remember it because I was like, I don't want to freaking remember that. The first day I was in the hospital, I had to have 3 blood transfusions because I was so anemic from alcohol. And, you know, there was needles in me every day for 6 days, and it was horrible. But I made it.
Yeah.
And it is possible.
Absolutely.
Oh, Micah, I just want to give you a hug.
I'm glad you did, girl.
We're so proud of you.
Yes. Yeah. Very sad.
And for joining us here last minute. We asked Micah if she would hop on
Oh, yeah. No problem.
with 4 hours prep time. So really appreciate having you on right now. I'm going to wrap things up here. And one of the things that crossed my mind, Micah, when you talked about your first 30-day experience and listening to everyone else's, but it popped in my mind when you were talking, is all 5 of us have very different experiences in our first 30 days. Age, experiences, some hospital, no hospital, just made the decision. Life forced your hand, our hands, all in a different way. And just because those are different, it doesn't take away all of the similarities that we all share. And the similarities that we share, we're talking about setting small goals. We all did that one way or another. We did it for ourselves, whether we knew it at the time or not. We were doing it for ourselves. We kept keeping busy, finding support and accountability. Super, super important early on. Everybody talked about it. And without that accountability, which sucks because it calls you out when you don't want to be called out, still super important. And it's a mindset. If it's something that you really, really want to do, even though it sucks, it's also something that you don't ever have to do again.
And it's totally worth it.
It's totally worth it. So I want to say thank you, Dana. Thank you, Amy. And thank you, Micah, for your time and for sharing your stories and your experience with us today. It was awesome to have you guys on. And I got to hang out with the ladies tonight.
Yeah.
Party.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Through the Glass Recovery Podcast. Make sure you don't miss future episodes by hitting that follow button. We'll see you next week for an episode about how family relationships are affected by recovery.